All organisms are composed of one or more microscopic units known as the cell. First discovered in 1665, cells sustain our life forces and allow us to live for another second. But what are cells? Basic overview of the cell. The cell can loosely be defined as the smallest unit of life, although its exact definition remains controversial. Anything smaller than a cell is considered dead. There are an estimated 37.2 trillion cells in the average human body. For comparison, there are around 200 billion galaxies in the observable universe, meaning that there are around 186 times more cells in your body than all known galaxies. There are two types of cells, prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. The main difference between them is how their DNA is stored. The DNA of prokaryotes hang around freely inside of the cell in an area called the nucleoid and short segments called plasmids. In eukaryotes, the DNA is stored as chromosomes in the nucleus. There are two important concepts in biology regarding cells: compartmentalization and specialization. Cell specialization occurs when different cells adapt and evolve to focus on a specific task. For instance, muscle cells have become specialized to aid in movement, while retinal cells have specialized to be able to capture photons and transmit information back to our brains. The unevolved or original cell is known as the stem cell. Stem cells become differentiated when the cell's DNA interacts with molecules in the cell, such that the genetic sequence becomes easier or harder to read by RNA molecules. These changes to the DNA readability survive cell division. Through specialization, groups of cells form structures called tissues. Tissues can combine to form organs, which in turn can collaborate to form a collective organ system. Finally, multiple organ systems give rise to an organism, a being that can sustain itself through various pathways. Meanwhile, cell compartmentalization is the process when cells can divide their work among subunits of the cell, known as organelles. Each organelle works closely with one another. Let's take a look at some of them. The organelles in eukaryotic cells. The first organelle we will look at is the cell membrane. The membrane acts as a barrier that separates the inside of the cell from the outside, yet specific substances, such as oxygen or water, can pass through. Some organisms have an additional organelle on the outside of the membrane, known as the cell wall, that aids in the structure and support of the organism, which is why plants do not need bones. The cytoplasm is a gelatinous fluid that fills up the interior of the membrane. The cytoplasm acts as the foundation of the cell, from which all other chemical reactions and processes take place. The nucleus is an organelle that only eukaryotes contain, that houses the cell's genetic code. Because of the nucleus's importance in the continuity of the cell, it is one of the only organelles that have a double-layered membrane. The nuclear membrane has tiny pores. These microscopic holes are for RNA molecules to be able to pass in and out of the nucleus during protein production. The interior of the nucleus is filled up with a nucleoplasm that resembles the external cytoplasm, except the nucleoplasm flows more easily. The nucleoplasm houses the cell's chromosomes. Floating in the nucleoplasm is the nucleolus, which produces smaller organelles known as ribosomes. The mitochondrion is the organelle that releases energy from nutrients. Through a process called cellular respiration, mitochondria produce energy packets called ATP for the cell to break down. Mitochondria, similar to the nucleus, contain double-layered membranes called the inner and outer mitochondrial membrane, with the mitochondrial matrix inside of the organelle, and the intermembrane space in between the two mitochondrial membranes. These membranes are there to help cellular respiration. Special organisms contain organelles called chloroplasts inside of them. Chloroplasts contain green pigments called chlorophyll that can trap light and use it for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is responsible for the production of oxygen and glucose, which we have gone into in the 2022 special video. Ribosomes are cellular particles made up of RNA and protein that synthesizes other proteins. It is closely intertwined with reading and following what mRNA strands tell it to do and collaborates with the endoplasmic reticulum in protein production. Two similar organelles are called the endoplasmic reticulum, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Both ERs are composed of folded membranes, making them look like mazes. The rough ER appears rough because ribosomes are embedded into its surface. The rough ER produces proteins for the cell. Meanwhile, the smooth ER produces slippery fats and other substances for the cell. Once proteins or lipids have been synthesized by the ribosomes and the ERs, the compounds are sent to the Golgi body. They are placed right next to the ERs and the cell's nucleus. The Golgi body packs and ships the molecules that it receives from the ERs. Excess material in the cell is temporarily stored in bubble-like organelles known as vacuoles. In animal cells, multiple small vacuoles sequester waste products. Meanwhile, in plant cells, the vacuoles are generally larger, forming a large central vacuole that maintains the water level in the plant cell and supports the cellular structure. Lysosomes are similar to vacuoles, in the sense that they are also membrane-bound organelles that look like bubbles. Lysosomes contain acids and digestive enzymes called hydrolytic enzymes that destroy waste products, intruding pathogens, and decompose nutrients that are too large for cellular respiration. Lysosomes are also what causes a cell to destroy itself in a process called apoptosis if the cell is damaged beyond repair. Plant cells and fungi cells do not contain lysosomes as their cell walls can keep out intruders quite well. Endosomes are a group of organelles that deal with the storing, packaging, and shipping of different substances in the cell. Endosomes are formed during a process called invagination, through which the cell membrane folds in on itself to form a bubble. Conclusion. In summary, we are composed of trillions and trillions of dynamic protein robots known as cells. They are made of even smaller structures known as organelles, with roles ranging from energy production to replication. The tasks carried out by these miniature protein robots are what makes you you. As a part of a campaign to upgrade our oldest videos, this video is the second remix that we have released so far. We will release the next remix soon.